Now we're going to create the handle here. First things first is hiding the teapot so we have a nice clean workspace. I'm deleting this. That was from an earlier attempt. And we don't really need to see so much of these side panels right now. For the method I'm about to show you, add a NURBS curve. This method won't work with the Bezier curve, so just go with the NURBS. Leave the nerves at home. Okay, and let's bring back the teapot. Move the curve to where the handle connects to the teapot. And then we're going to rotate that handle. And we'll rotate it again on the Y or on the Z axis so we can see it right here. I'm going to hide the reference so we can see it better. So I'll just move the reference up. Okay. So go into edit mode. You can adjust the curve by just selecting vertices and moving the vertices along an axes of your choice. So we're going to hit A to select all of the vertices and then move it closer to where the handle is. In order to create more vertices, and eventually more geometry, I suppose, is select a vertex and then you can hit E and extrude that vertex out. So that's nice. That's really fun, really simple. So now we have this curve. We need to add some geometry. So select the NURBS curve and then navigate to Object Data Properties. Go down to Geometry and then under Bevel, you can increase the depth. And now there is geometry. Well, I guess it's not geometry yet, but it looks like geometry to us in the viewport. And now it actually looks a lot more like a handle. But for this use case today, we want a little bit more control over the profile and the shape of this geometry instead of just being able to adjust the depth. So to do that, we can create a circle curve, move it so where you can see it, and then use this curve to control the profile of this curve. So we've created this circle curve and I actually renamed it because I have hidden another Bezier circle that is named Bezier circle, which was causing some conflicts, but no need to worry about that for your project. And then select Bezier circle right there. And here's the magic, right? So when we go to edit mode, when this circle is selected, hit A to select all. As we scale the Bezier up and down, you can see the handle follows suit. Awesome. So for this project, I subdivided the circle and then selected every other vertex and scaled those in to get this more interesting profile here for the handle. Okay, that looks pretty good. So now we need to add these offshoots from the main stem. You see here how there's 3 tulips and 3 stems. We need to create those stems. So to do that, it's actually really simple. And again, this only works with the NURBS curve. Select a vertex and then just hit E for extrude. And a new stem is essentially created. We need 3 stems in this case. So I'm going to extrude another vertex. So now everything is looking kind of weird, right? Everything's misaligned. Okay, so we need to do a lot of readjusting. So I'm going to basically move the whole thing in object mode, rotate it 90, and then get us to a good starting point. Okay, remember earlier I showed you how to extrude from a vertex? I'm going to do that again here. And then, okay, so I'm turning on proportional editing. As you can see, this gray circle shows what other geometry is going to be affected as I move this one vertex, or whatever it may be. Okay, so we're getting closer. Just keep fiddling around. Don't forget about the proportional editing tool. It can be really, really helpful for situations like these. So as you can see in the reference image, the base of this handle is thicker than the tops of the stems. So to change the thickness around one vertex, you can hit Alt S and scale that one vertex up or down. So we're going to scale it up. So maybe that's a little bit too big. This is digital art, so we do it smart. All of our actions are reversible, which is pretty awesome. Right, so this is looking pretty much fairly close to the reference. One thing I'm going to do is you can see how all these offshoots are stacked on top of each other. We don't want that. So we're going to move some of these stems on the x-axis so we can have a little bit more interest in the composition and match the reference better. So we can move these. Yeah, so that looks a lot better already. Okay. Cool. I say cool as if I'm wrapping this up and then I keep editing. It's just not quite there. But for educational purposes, I think you get the gist. Right. All right. So let's label this thickness. It's always good to keep organized. Label this handle. And then we can add a material. We're going to add the same sample material as we did for the teapot. Click apply to selected. And then we just want to change the color. So head over to your shading tab, navigate to your color ramp, and then simply change the color of that color ramp. Oh, okay. You see how that applied to everything? That's not what we want. So we Control Z'd until we got back to no material. And then we're going to apply the same sample material, apply to selected, and then duplicate that material here, rename it ceramic polished handle, and then change the color. Okay, very cool. Moving on to the tulips. Now we are going to start modeling the tulip. Let's clear the space and then hit Shift A, add a cube, scale the cube down, move it up so it's somewhat centered. Let's create some space and then scale it on the y-axis so it looks, we get closer to a petal shape. And then we're going to subdivide it by hitting Control 5. And as you can see here, the base of the tulip petals is wider than the top bit of the petal. So let's go into X-ray mode and then select that bottom edge and scale it up. This looks a little bit squat now, so we're going to move that up and then scale this down. Okay, so we kind of have this basic tulip shape. It looks like the tulip bulges out a bit more. The tulip petal bulges out a bit more here and then comes back in. So in order to mimic that, let's go to edit mode and then create a loop cut in the center and then bring that loop cut in, bring this up and then move this up. So you can even go like that, bring that in, bring that out, you know, just play around till we get a shape that we like. That's a little bit exaggerated. Okay, that looks pretty good. So now we are going to use something called an array modifier to basically duplicate this petal around a curve. So, but before we add the array modifier, we're going to add a deform to curve modifier. And we want the petal to be iterated around a circle. So that means we need to create another circle curve. And we want the circle curve and the petal to share the same origin point. And we can do that by simply aligning the two. And you can get these align tools simply by going over here to edit preferences and then going to align. You need to enable these tools. You don't have to download anything. You don't need to download an add-on from GitHub or anything. You just need to enable it. So you do that by searching and then hitting this check mark. Okay, so now we're going to align all. So now, as you can see, the circle and the petal share an origin point. Let's scale the circle up and then select it as, let's name this one. So Tulip, oh, not that one. This is the petal. Okay, well, looks like we're being forced to name the petal. Okay, name the circle. Tulip curve. Okay. Reselect that petal, and then now, as you can see, the petal is sitting on that curve. Let's scale, just scale the curve down. Okay, so now we need to add an array modifier. And as you can see, as I increase the count, the number of tulips increases on the screen. We want the array to follow the curve, right? So maybe if we move this array above the curve, it'll follow the curve. Yeah, looks like that's the solution here. So we can increase the number of petals and then scale this curve down like that. So now we have this really awesome tulip. But as you can see, the bottoms of the tulips don't go in as much as I would like. So I'm essentially going to go back into edit mode for that original petal and then just move that bottom section along the y-axis. But that was actually in the wrong direction. So we're going to move it. Oops. Move it in the other direction. And now the petals are all joined there at the bottom. And shade smooth. Okay. And this is kind of what it looks like just in gray clay. Awesome. So now we've made a tulip. Right. So now we are going to put the tulip on top of the stems. So we don't need that. A shortcut to hide objects is just H on the keyboard. And we are essentially going to, it's funny. In order to move the tulip in this arrangement, we have to move both the tulip curve and the petal. Because the modifiers are not applied yet. So everything is being recalculated. Okay, cool. So let's duplicate this collection. And then we have another tulip. And we can arrange that tulip according to the other stem. And one more tulip collection, please and thank you. Select all the objects within that collection. Okay. And we want to change the angle a little bit. So we need to make sure the petals and the curves are selected. Scale it up. Maybe. Okay. And then do that same thing with this last third tulip. Great. Now we need to scale these vertices either up or down to help us out with this look. Okay. It's a bit much. Scale it down a little bit. All right. That looks good. We can collapse these collections and then bring back the teapot to see where we're at. Okay, everything looks a bit large, so we can just scale it down. Well, as we learned, we need to scale each, the curve and the petals individually. So we'll scale these down and then we'll scale down the stem to match. Okay, and then we can just move these backwards. Let's turn on some proportional editing. Okay. And don't forget to save. I haven't mentioned that once yet, but don't forget to save.